You know those massive protests you see erupting on the news? The ones that seem to come out of nowhere? Well, what if I told you they're not always what they seem? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the powerful digital forces shaping these modern uprisings, and trust me, what we find is pretty surprising.
So how in the world did millions of people in places like Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka get organized seemingly overnight? I mean, was it just a spontaneous wave of pure organic outrage? Or was there something else going on, something more like a robot revolution? That's the big mystery we're diving into today.
All right, so let's get into the anatomy of these digital protests. Where do they even begin? You might think it's with a clever line of code or some secret server farm, but nope. It actually starts with something way more powerful. Real, raw, authentic human anger.
Just imagine for a second, you're scrolling through your phone and then bam, you see a video that just stops you dead in your tracks. It's a video of violence, of pure injustice. Well, according to research from Hushin, for countless people in Bangladesh, that's exactly what happened. 100% of the people they spoke to said that seeing these atrocities on social media was a major reason they joined the protests. It wasn't just a video anymore, it was the spark.
Okay, so you have the spark, that real human outrage. But what if someone, or something, was pouring gasoline on that fire, fanning the flames with an invisible hand and making it feel like absolutely everyone was on the same page all at once? Well, this is where things start to get really interesting. This is where we meet the ghost in the machine. Let's take Bangladesh's 2024 revolution as our first case. The online conversation wasn't just a discussion, it was an absolute hurricane. And what was sitting right in the eye of that storm? A whole swarm of automated accounts, bots, that were basically supercharging the entire movement.
So just how big of an operation are we talking about here? Well, researchers from Al Zaman dug into a whopping 1.27 million Facebook comments from that period, and what they found is pretty staggering. Almost a quarter of them, 22.27% to be exact, were not from people. They were bot-generated. Think about that. More than 1 in every 5 comments was completely automated.
And look, this wasn't some isolated incident in Bangladesh. Check out what was happening in Nepal. The numbers there are even more stark. Over on X, formerly Twitter, a massive 34%, that's more than a third, of the profiles driving the protest conversation were found to be fake. So you see the pattern, right? This isn't random. It's a playbook, and it's being used all across the region.
And we have to be clear, these bots weren't just mindlessly spamming nonsense. Oh no, they were sophisticated. They had a very clear mission. As you can see here, they were focused on specific themes, mobilizing people to join protests, pushing religious-political angles, drumming up external support, criticizing political figures, and even straight-up emotional manipulation. They were digital puppet masters, pulling all the right strings.
But here's the thing. This story is not just about bots. That's only one piece of the puzzle. It's really about how these different movements are using the entire arsenal of digital weapons they have. And as we're about to see, the choice of weapon can make all the difference in the world. This table gives us a perfect side-by-side look. In Bangladesh, where Facebook is dominant, the key weapon was sharing those shocking, viral videos of violence. But in Nepal, organizers went a different route, using AI-generated visuals across multiple platforms like X and TikTok. Then you've got Sri Lanka, where it was all about massive hashtag campaigns and using coordinated groups on Facebook and Telegram. Different countries, different contexts, and completely different digital weapons.
Let's just zoom in on Sri Lanka for a minute, because their Argalaya movement was like a masterclass in digital organizing. We're talking about a hashtag #GoHomeGo to2022, used over 500,000 times. A single Facebook group with more than 300,000 members. They even had 26 separate Telegram groups to coordinate at the district level, not to mention YouTube live streams pulling in over 10 million views. It was a full-on, multi-platform symphony of resistance.
And then you have Nepal, where things got, well, a little bit sci-fi. Organizers there unleashed a brand new weapon, AI-generated images. Yeah, you heard that right. They were creating realistic images of protesters to amplify their calls to action, making the movement look bigger and more widespread. This is a whole new frontier for protests, and it is a total game changer. So, with these digital fires raging, you can bet the authorities weren't just going to stand by and watch. Of course not. They have a weapon of their own, a tool of last resort that they hoped would pull the plug on the dissent and silence it for good.
And that big weapon? The internet shutdown. It's a classic authoritarian move. In Bangladesh, they cut access for over 10 days, specifically targeting Facebook to kill the conversation. But here's the thing.
In this new reality, it just didn't work. The protesters were already a step ahead. They just switched over to VPNs and encrypted apps, completely bypassing the government's block. The state tried to unplug the revolution, but the people just found a new socket.
So all of this brings us to a really fundamental shift. What happens when it becomes almost impossible to tell the difference between a real person and a bot online? When the very idea of public opinion can be manufactured? Well, you get something entirely new. You get what researchers are now calling the synthetic public.
Let me break that down, because this idea is crucial. A synthetic public is what you get when genuine human emotion and expression get blended with fake, automated amplification. The grievances are real, the anger is real, but the volume is being cranked up to 11 by these automated systems. It's authentic feeling with a massive, inauthentic megaphone.
And this is maybe the most important thing to understand. The goal of these bot networks isn't to invent a reason for people to be angry. You can't just create grievances out of thin air. No, the strategy is way smarter. It's to find that existing spark of real anger and amplify it over and over until it feels like an absolutely overwhelming majority opinion. They don't start the fire, they just pour on the gasoline.
And the scale of this illusion is just breathtaking. Look at this number from Nepal. The potential reach of these inauthentic accounts was 326 million. That's how a small number of operators can create the perception of a massive, unstoppable movement. They are literally manufacturing the illusion of consensus.
So as you can imagine, for the researchers and journalists trying to make sense of all this, it's a huge challenge. The old tools they use to track online activity just can't keep up. It's getting harder than ever to tell a bot from a real person, especially with these hybrid accounts. That's exactly why the best research combines digital data analysis with old-fashioned on-the-ground interviews. To get the real story, you still have to talk to real people.
And all of this leaves us with a final and, honestly, a pretty unsettling question. If online consensus can be manufactured so effectively, if a synthetic public can be built to look and feel just like a real one, what on earth does that mean for the future of democracy? I mean, what happens to a system that depends on the will of the people when that will can be so easily faked?